Good evening and welcome to Voices on Madhouse Reality TV. This show is about abuse. It focuses entirely about all forms of abuse if you've never been watching, if you haven't watched this show before. And we also talk about issues that surround abuse, any kind of issues that impacts it or correlates with it. Tonight's show is going to highlight response of Suffolk County, Long Island. And my guest today is Lisa Zeller. She's a friend of mine, an associate. Welcome, Lisa, again.
Hi, Alice. Thank you very much.
Always good to have you on the show.
I'm happy to be here.
The hotline does many things. So if you could just tell us a little bit, what does Response do? I mean, so that the audience can know.
Okay. Response has a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline. Where anyone can call who's in crisis or needs to talk. We are there to assist people who might be feeling suicidal as well, but you don't have to be suicidal to call Response. We'll talk to anybody about any issue, including people who are going through abusive situations or have had past abuse or trauma. It's a very safe space for people to talk. We also have an online counseling program called Here to Help that's available on our website.
Okay.
And we have a Spanish line called Conexión for Spanish-speaking callers, and we're a member of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline as well.
Okay, that's all good work, good work. Why don't you tell us what you do over there at Response?
Okay, I'm the training coordinator, so I arrange our volunteer trainings. Most of the people that take calls on our hotline, on our support line, are volunteers, and so they have to be extensively trained since they do deal with a lot of difficult crises that people call in for. So I'm arranging the trainings. We have a training coming up actually in the spring if people are interested in volunteering. And that's March 9th, 10th, 16th, and 17th. So if people are interested, they can go on our website and apply online.
Oh, that's great. How long does one of these trainings take?
The first part of our training is about 25 hours. It's over 2 weekends from 9:30 to 4 o'clock on 2 Saturdays and Sundays. And then if you're selected to join part 2 of our training, that's when people would actually start working in our office on the lines.
Okay.
And training on the lines, and that takes about 10 weeks.
That is really difficult work, to listen to the stories that come in and hear this time and time again. And you don't tend to have volunteers that do this every day, or do they kind of like do it very, is it part-time? Or?
Yes, very much so, because it is such difficult work. It's very rewarding, but it's also can be very stressful. So we ask that people only do 1 4-hour shift a week, especially in the beginning. Some of our more experienced volunteers will do more, but yeah, initially people are sticking to usually 1 4-hour shift a week.
I can imagine. That's very difficult work.
Yeah.
Very difficult work. I was doing the research, and you always, numbers always are different with the different research, but I found an interesting number today. It was saying that 5% of our deaths worldwide are suicides. That is a very high number. 1.5% of deaths are suicide. So, of the calls you get, how many of them, approximately, would be, suicidal thoughts, let's say? They're not that kind of depressed.
People that mention having suicidal thoughts, I would say probably about 25% of our calls are related to suicide, meaning the person is expressing some kind of suicidal thoughts in the call.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's high. And so, could you give us an idea of what the process is if somebody has suicidal thoughts and they're calling the hotline? What's the process? What's the process at that point?
Well, what we would do is, since everybody's story is so different, we're really interested in making the person feel comfortable and safe and inviting them to tell us in their own way and in their own time, what's been going on and what's been making them have these suicidal thoughts, to really share their story. And we never would force anybody to tell us things that they weren't ready to tell.
Oh, yeah.
So we really want people to feel comfortable. And then we would talk with them about, about their safety, and we would, assess what level of suicidality they are. Because a lot of people, might be having thoughts but wouldn't necessarily have a plan or are planning on doing it. Other people, do have a plan, and so there's different levels of suicidality. So we try and help the person figure out where they are and how to keep themselves safe.
Okay. What if the person you're speaking with, really sounds like they're going to act out on this? What's the process on that?
Well, what we do is we would assess the level of risk that they're at, and then there's a variety of things that we can talk about with the person. Response really tries to empower the person, the caller, and help them make the decisions that are important to them, because we believe the caller is the expert in their own life. Okay. So we would try and help that person come up with a safety plan. That might include, things that make them feel safe, like putting away the means of harm. It might involve reaching out to family members or friends that might be able to be with them.
Right.
It could involve, professionals that they're already working with, mental health professionals, and reaching out to them. Or it could involve reaching out to, or going to places like the hospital, right. Or reaching out for more assistance.
Okay. Yeah, that's important to know that. We're going on to a commercial, and we'll be right back.
Brooklyn's best locksmith and hardware.
We have 3 of the largest showrooms of safes on display and in stock. You can see and touch them in person instead of browsing a catalog. We carry gun and rifle safes, burglary safes, jewelry safes, fire rated from a half hour to 2 hours. Famous name brands.
We sell Gardol.
We sell AMSAC.
The new AMSAC touchscreen.
If you're ever in need of a safe, think Brooklyn's best locksmith and hardware. Right, Lockie?
That's right, Alan.
Welcome to Formula Auto Wash, where every day is a great day for a car wash. Open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. Sundays 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. Detailing packages for every budget, starting out at $29.99. 100% hand wash and detail centre. Hogshair and microfiber brushes and mitts. Proudly using Ecolab Blue Coral soaps and waxes. Formula Auto Wash has served the community for over 30 years. Senior discounts all day, every day. Ladies' Day Wednesday, $3 off any wash. Early bird discount Monday through Thursday till 9:30 a.m. Check out our website, formulaautowash.com.
Old Spice body spray will make you feel so powerful to blow your mind right in front of your face.
Goodbye.
Oh no! He's like, I don't. Power!
Automatic freshness, softness, and static control has never been easier with the Bounce dryer bar. I just stick it to the inside of my dryer, and I never have to remember.
Oh, Old Spice body spray makes you smell like power! It's so powerful it sells itself in other people's commercials. You smell like outdoor freshness.
You smell like power.
Yeah, I do. Power! Power!
Try this.
Welcome back to Voices on Madhouse Reality TV. We are speaking to Lisa Zeller from Response Hot-Line of Suffolk County, Long Island. If you would like to call and ask any questions of myself or of Lisa, or if you'd like to give us a story, maybe you have called Response and you would like to share your story on the show. All calls can be anonymous. You don't have to give your name. And the number here is 631-669-7999. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you.
Oh, what an evening. Okay, could you just highlight what you said before we went to commercial, just one more time, about what the process is when someone is actually, you feel that they may go through with a suicidal plan?
Sure. There's different levels of suicidal risk, but if somebody is possibly coming close to actually killing themselves, we would talk to them about different things that might help keep themselves safe, putting away the means of harm, maybe reaching out and contacting somebody or engaging with someone who might be in the home there that might be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we can discuss options such as the hospital or getting that person some help. If there's no other way, or if they're not willing to get themselves to the hospital. But we really try and work with the person to keep themselves safe.
You ever call the mobile crisis unit to go in and help the client?
Yes, we work very closely with the mobile crisis team.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I've worked with them also. They're just great. They come in and, boy, they really start taking care of stuff, and they've really helped suggesting getting the client to the hospital and getting them there, so it's great.
What's really nice about the mobile crisis team is that they're free and that they go out in regular plain clothes and in an unmarked car, so people don't have to feel embarrassed or nervous that their neighbors will know somebody's coming in. They go in and they talk with the person and try to set them up with an appointment within 5 working days or get them to the hospital so they can get more help.
Oh, when I've worked with them, they have gotten my client to the hospital. I mean, and there was more than one person that came in. It was a nurse and someone else, a counselor.
It's usually a team, yeah.
Yeah, it's a team. So I was, when I first used them, I didn't know it was going to be a team to come in. And they also made me feel comfortable, too, because it's a difficult situation, and it's nice to know that there's other people there to help out.
Yeah.
The correlation to suicidal thoughts and domestic violence, when they call, and if they're having suicidal thoughts in any way, what degree of those calls are due to abuse, domestic violence, sexual trauma?
Well, actually, in general, especially sexual trauma, but also domestic violence, any kind of violence in the home is very closely linked to suicidal thoughts and suicidal behavior. So I would say probably of the people that call that are suicidal on our lines, probably about 95% of them have some kind of trauma or some kind of abuse in their past history. It might not be going on right now, it could be a childhood trauma, but it's so significantly linked.
It's still affecting them at this time.
Yes.
In my research at looking at suicides, they were saying the risk factors was being female, low socioeconomic status, lack of education. I believe domestic violence was in there as well. Is there anything else that would be a high risk factor?
Well, of course, mental illness, a psychiatric illness, any kind of access to weapons of any kind. Substance abuse is a huge factor.
Really?
It's very closely related. So there's a very high correlation between suicidality and substance abuse.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. But then again, also the correlation going back to domestic violence, there women in substance abuse programs, 90% of them have been in some kind of abusive relationship or there's been sexual trauma or there's been all of the above. And so, again, there's always a connection to another connection, another connection. It's amazing, when you start thinking about it.
Sure. And substance abuse is so related to wanting to end pain or to deal with pain, and suicide also is a way, at least thought to be a way to end pain.
How many of your, well, probably not how many, but do you get many calls of maybe not suicide, but self-mutilation?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do. We get quite a few calls related to self-mutilation, particularly on our online counseling program, which seems to cater mostly to youth. We get a lot of adolescents, junior high and high school and college age people who are cutting in particular.
Wow. It's like a subculture. I work with a lot of teens and in counseling, and it's a subculture. There's this underlying culture in middle school and high school. And I've seen it in college. I don't really get a lot of college students, but I do get adults that said they did in the past. So there's this, to relieve stress, to the way they express their emotion, I guess, and they're cutting.
Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons why people talk about cutting, but to relieve stress, sometimes to feel alive if they feel very numb. A lot of people who have problems with cutting have issues with trauma and past abuse or current abuse, maybe difficulty expressing themselves.
Exactly, expressing themselves. And, I can imagine, but teenagers, as a rule, don't really have it easy expressing themselves, especially to the adult world. This is the time where teenagers enter, 12, pre-adolescent, adolescent. They're entering a time where, mom and dad doesn't understand me, I tend to tell adults, parents, I tell them, your children have now been taken to Mars, and they'll come back around 21 or so, and you'll get them back. Your child will come back, I promise you. But it's a very tumultuous and anxious time. And if there's also domestic violence in the home, that child is not going to have their needs met. Because there's a lot of needs to be met at the adolescent years.
Yes.
And if a family is dysfunctional and fighting and arguing, or there's actual abuse going on, they're not paying attention to that child and meeting those needs. So it's a little frightening for me.
Sure, it's frightening
to
for
know
everybody.
that there's that subculture. I have a granddaughter just is turning 13 next week. And I go, it's so frightening to know that she goes to school and there's this subculture. I never met anyone when I was in school that cut.
It used to be that people hid it a lot more. There was a lot more shame around it. But now it seems that some people are starting to kind of be more open about it. Not everyone. There's still a lot of shame about it. But I think the thing that's really important for people that are self-mutilating to know is that you're not alone. That there are other people and there is help and there is treatment for it.
What I found amazing is that on the internet there are images of people who cut. Different degrees of cuts, and there's images out there, and it leaves me speechless.
Yeah.
It leaves me speechless, because if the children are cutting and they're doing this to express themselves or numb the pain, or some have said, well, if this hurts, then the emotional pain isn't hurting as much. I've heard that as well. And they're seeing this out there. It now becomes almost acceptable behavior, and so that must be a very difficult job, to be on that phone and speaking with someone who is cutting. What are the other things that teenagers may be calling about?
We have teenagers that call about issues, relationship issues with friends. We have quite a few that call about romantic relationships, intimate partner violence. We have quite a few teenagers that call because they're being bullied. Yeah, so we're dealing with a lot of bullying issues, a lot of family issues, divorce, separation, maybe there's abuse or violence going on in the home, or concern about a friend. We do get quite a few teenagers, and it makes me feel very hopeful, that reach out because they're concerned about somebody else. Whether that person is going through a difficult crisis or they're feeling suicidal. We do a lot of community education presentations in the schools.
Oh, you do? Oh.
So we're going out to junior highs and high schools and colleges, and we are getting a great response from those presentations where kids are reaching out directly as a result. Either to our hotline or to our online counseling program.
When there is something that happens in the community, like a suicide, a child committing suicide or anything like that, does a response go in?
Yes, we sometimes do post-vention work as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. Because, it's very hard for a community
Yes.
to see something like this, a child that committed suicide. Why would that happen? Like the child that committed suicide in West Islip, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago? And part of that was, obviously the child must have been depressed already. But then to have the bullying that took place in spring form just pushed her over the edge. And did you hear about spring form?
Yes.
I'm not crazy about this spring form business.
Yeah.
Because, through anonymity, they can now bully.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to say things you wouldn't have the courage to say or you wouldn't normally say, to act badly, when there are no consequences to the behavior.
Nobody knows what you did.
Yeah, and it's a very impulsive, and you know that teenagers, adolescents can be very impulsive. So when you give them a medium that allows them to say whatever they want without thinking about it, sometimes that can be a dangerous thing.
It can be, and I'm seeing that more and more. I don't think the bullying, maybe my age. I know I must have heard this from my family when I was a kid. I just don't think the bullying was as bad as it is today. We saw bullying. There was bullying in the school. There was pushing and shoving, and you pick on the weaker kids, the kids that were very studious, the geeks. But now we're taking it to another level with the cyberbullying and everything like that. So I imagine a lot, and since there is so much of it, I would imagine you would get a lot of calls on the bullying.
Yeah, we do, and oftentimes bullying is part of a larger problem, and sometimes, especially when it comes to feelings of suicide, thoughts of suicide, it's a buildup of so many different things. Maybe there's problems at home, maybe there's problems academically, maybe that the child has a predisposition to being depressed. Maybe they're dealing with issues related to weight and food, or friendship problems, and then add bullying on top of that, and there's only so much a child can take sometimes if they don't have support, and even sometimes if they do. But support is so important, and a safe place to talk is so important.
A non-judgmental space, and I'm going to say this to the parents out there. It really becomes hard, and I know it's hard, to hear your child speak about certain things and not place a judgment on it, especially if you've never been through it or you've never seen it in your life before. But our children today are going through life, and they are seeing things in life that we have not. I've never had to deal with cyberbullying. They didn't even have computers when I was a kid. So I didn't even have to deal with that. And cell phones didn't exist when I was a kid either, so didn't have to deal with that either. And I didn't have to deal with that raising my children either, because that didn't even come till they were a little older. But, parents have a really difficult job now, but to be able to be supportive of these children that are going through very difficult situations without a judgment, helping them express themselves, because there are so many other ways to express yourself that isn't cutting. And we may not be that cool with it. We may not want to hear, or look at certain art or music, or, when I was a kid, heavy metal, it was like my mother didn't want to hear heavy metal in the house, But if this is the way they express themselves, so be it. It's harmless. I remember picking up my daughter from a camp. It was a university near Canada, and we get there, and the children decided, in order to express themselves, to spray paint their hair streaks of orange. I thought it was cool. I thought it was so cute. I saw so many parents upset. I said, they could wash that out. What's the big deal? This is just them doing their thing, It's harmless.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to choose our battles as parents. Sometimes we have to decide, is that a priority? Is my kid wants to have blue streak through her hair as self-expression? Is it a priority to argue with her about it, or him? If he wants to shave his head and you're not cool with it, but is that a priority? We have other priorities. It's a very difficult time to be raising children today.
I think it's really important to give your kids the space to talk freely and to express their emotions.
Absolutely.
And that's sometimes can be hard for parents because they want to jump right in and fix. And they want to come up with a solution, or they want to tell their child what to do, because it's hard to tolerate your child's pain. But sometimes it's important to just sit back and listen and say, I hear you.
That is so
I understand
true.
What's going on with you.
We're so used to fixing, but that's a very good point. And sometimes maybe just to ask a question like, what would you like to do? Or
Find
not
out
to.
what they're thinking about.
Find out what they're thinking of, and allow let them to process it. It's a really good technique for them too, because the children need to learn how to do this. They're going to grow up, be adults. They need to learn how to process things. And so to ask that question, listen to them, and say, what would you like to do about that?
I think also if you can come at discussing things with your kids more with the spirit of collaboration and saying, well, how can we solve this problem together? Or maybe we can come up with some ideas together once we're done talking.
Sure.
So that they feel like you're with them rather than against them, and that they're not alone, but they are an important part of the process.
Absolutely. And that's a growing for them. They mature this way. And teens, from what I'm seeing, working with the teens now, they don't want to be told what to do. They're fighting hand and foot not to be told what to do. And so it's a good way to empower them and give them a sense of they know what they want in their life and what they're going to do. And they need to be able to speak to somebody. They need to be able to speak to somebody.
Sure.
And so many of them are not speaking to anybody, and I think that's the other problem. Or they're speaking to another child, but that child also has a problem, so it is not helping out the situation. With so many teenagers from the ages of 11 to 13, 1 out of 3 are in an abusive relationship, and from 14 to 19, 1 out of 4, this is something we need to look at. We're going to go on a commercial break, and we'll be right back, and we'll continue this conversation.
Hi, I'm Tom Mealy for 1-800-INJURY-LAW, the Harrison Law Group. And for years, you have heard me talk about soft tissue injuries, whether it's been sustained in a car accident, a work-related accident, or a slip and fall. Let me get right to the point. When you have a soft tissue injury, this is no joke. A soft tissue injury can be worse and last longer than a fracture. Now, understand something. Even though this firm does not just simply work on soft tissue injuries, We work with people that have sustained very serious injuries, including, unfortunately, missing body parts. But let's get something straight. When you're dealing with soft tissue injury, you better understand both the medical and the legal aspect of what you're doing, because if you don't, you will
Ray, I don't know. Are you sure clicking this thing will get us online?
Well, try dragging it.
Faster.
You're just a mouse click away from a better way to rent movies. Blockbuster Total Access. Movies through the mail plus movies through the store. One low price.
Here's the problem. We forgot to plug it in.
Oh, don't even think about it.
Get a free trial at your Blockbuster store or Blockbuster.com.
One resident describes her horrifying experience when she first realized the complex was on fire.
I got bronchitis. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Well, I woke up to go give me a cold pop. Then I thought somebody was barbecuing. I said, oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Then I ran out. I didn't grab no shoes or nothing, Jesus. I ran for my life. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. I said, oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire. I said, oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire. I said, oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Jesus, 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 it's a fire. Oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire. I said, oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire. I said, oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Jesus, 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 Jesus. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Welcome back to Voices on Madhouse Reality TV. We're speaking to Lisa Zeller of Response Hot-Line, Suffolk County, Long Island. And Lisa, I wanted to ask you one more question, especially with the young people. After that whole episode that happened in Connecticut with the killing of all those children, I wonder if anyone who was thinking of harming someone else would call you and speak to you about it, or when I answer this question, are they in anguish? I mean, if they call, it's because they're feeling anguish, they're feeling they're going to do this, and they're feeling anguish about it.
Those calls are much more rare on our hotline. Usually, most of the people that we speak to who are thinking of harming anyone are usually thinking of harming themselves. We do assess for risk of harm to others, though, and we do have procedures in place if somebody is threatening to hurt someone else, to handle that situation and to try and prevent anyone else from getting hurt. But from the people that we speak to, most of the callers that call us, whether they're thinking of hurting themselves or thinking of hurting others, they're in a great deal of pain. And oftentimes the callers that talk about hurting others are not actually thinking about doing it, but they're venting a lot of their feelings about it. There's a continuum of lethality or homicidal ideation, just like there's a continuum of suicidal ideation.
What is that? What's the continuum on the homicidal ideation?
Well, I mean, you have a continuum from people that might just talk about saying something like, oh, I can't stand this person, I wish, I just want to go up and punch them in the face, but I'd never do it.
Right, okay.
To the person that, maybe they punch a wall when they're angry, or, maybe they threaten somebody, to the person that actually does have a history of attacking people. So there's a real range.
Okay, I imagine also if they have a plan, on how they're going to do it, because then it would be premeditated.
Right. The more
and that would
specific.
takes time, right,
Yes.
to figure out this is the way I'm going to do it.
Right. Just like with suicide, the more specific the plan, the higher the risk. If the person knows who, what, where, when, how, that's going to be of greater concern. Of course, we take all thoughts of suicide or any threats of homicide seriously.
And I would imagine if they have access to some kind of weaponry.
Yes, and there's any kind of access to a weapon, that increases, the risk that the person will actually act on the behavior.
Would they actually share something like that with you?
It's very rare. Really, I haven't experienced a call like that myself. Where someone was actually threatening to kill someone with any kind of a weapon. They are so rare. But it's possible if somebody was angry enough or, that it could happen,
I think someone that would do that may have some grandiose ideas, like they're going to get away with it.
It might be possible somebody is out of touch with reality,
too. Yeah,
or wants some kind of recognition.
You really hear all kinds of stories over there.
Yeah, we do. We do.
I'm a person in distress. I don't know what to do. I have no one to speak to, and I call Response Hotline. What happens next?
That's a great question. A volunteer crisis counselor will answer the phone. They'll say, hello, Response. And they'll just invite you to start wherever you'd like to talk. If you're really upset and crying and having a hard time talking, our counselors will stay on the line with you and say, take your time, whenever you're ready, we can talk, I'm here. And because it's confidential, you can feel comfortable to share what you'd like. The counselors aren't going to push you to share anything that you don't want to share. The caller's really in control of the information. They're really in control of the call. We're there as a support, to listen, to talk about what the person is going through and what they think is the important thing to focus on. And then we can help them, if they want to, explore options for what next steps they might want to take. Okay. We also have a pretty extensive database of community resources, so we can provide referrals and phone numbers to different agencies, everything from food and shelter and clothing and emergency assistance to therapists and psychiatrists and mental health resources.
Wow, I should get a list of that. I could use that list myself.
Sure, yeah.
That would be great. I'd love to get a copy of that. Is there a limited amount of time, or will a volunteer stay with them as long as they need them?
In general, a volunteer will stay with somebody as long as they need. If someone's in a crisis, we're going to, stay with that person and help them work through it. We have some callers that call on a regular basis, so, our average call is about 20 minutes, but it's usually we follow the caller. We stay with them, for as long as they need to tell their story and to talk and relieve some of that anxiety that they're going through.
Wow. I don't know if I could do this. I know I'm a counselor, but, there's some good stories that come to me sometimes, too. But that's not, people are not calling you with the good stories, like
not
I had this great day, or, or maybe they called you and they had a really bad day and they've called you frequently with some depression and anxiety and something good happens to them. Do they ever call you with that change?
Yes, they do. They actually Callers sometimes will call us and tell us, hey, I just wanted to let you know this worked out. And it's great when callers call just to say, I really just wanted to thank you. You helped me through a really tough time. And those are so rewarding for us. It's so nice to know that things worked out for people and that people are okay.
So you heard that. If you've ever called Response Hotline and you've told them your woes, when everything's going good, give them a call. Let them know.
It means a lot to us.
That is so difficult. Now, let me ask you a question. You said you're having volunteers starting again in March?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're having our spring volunteer training.
What's the process in becoming a volunteer?
Okay, it's really easy. If you have access to the internet, you can go online to our website, www.responsehotline.org, and you can click on, interested in volunteering, and you can complete an online application. Mm-hmm. That comes to me, and once I get it and review it, then I would send you information about our training, the location, and what's involved, the process. Then you would come to our training, our 2 weekend trainings.
They go through an interview with you first?
We don't do an interview before they come to the first part of training. The first part of training is kind of like an interview where they get to know us, we get to know them.
Like an orientation?
Yeah, and you learn the basic skills.
Okay.
If you're accepted into part 2, because we only have a limited number of spots, and crisis counseling isn't for everybody, if you're accepted into part 2, then you would come to our office and you would work with an experienced volunteer trainer on the lines, and you would also come to 10 weekly workshops on different topics related to taking calls on the lines, including the workshop that you did for us on domestic violence and sexual assault. So,
yes, I do the domestic violence, sexual assault.
Which is a great workshop.
We're friends. Okay, so you're in training, and an average for a person to become comfortable with these difficult calls, because I'm sure as they're learning that there's someone very close by that they could go like,
oh yeah,
save me. This one's tough. I can't do it. But what's the average where they get this comfort level? And I'm sure that every once in a while they need to call a very experienced person, but where they really feel a comfort level and they think they can handle it unless it gets really too wild.
I find that most people, it takes, and myself included because I started out as a volunteer as well, it takes about a year for you really to feel like you can kind of handle everything that comes up. But you always have support. There's always a staff member available 24 hours a day. So no one is ever alone. If there isn't somebody in the office with you, there's somebody that's available by phone or by text. But our volunteers are never alone, and especially in the beginning, you're not going to ever be alone.
Well, how long have you been doing this now, Lisa?
I've been with Response, I've been the training coordinator for 5 years, but I've been with Response for 7. Just 2 of those first 2 years I was a volunteer.
Okay, so don't even know how many phone calls you've ever taken. Must be thousands at this point. But do you still get those moments where you're just unsure? It's such a difficult call. I mean, I know your experience and you could do this as a seat of your pants, but do you ever get those calls still that your heart starts palpitating and you're just not sure where you're going to go? I mean, you're going now through your experience and you're going to handle it, but that uncertainty?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. You never know what call's coming in next on our hotline, and you always hope that you'll be able to help that person with whatever they need help with, but you just don't know, and any situation can come up. So yeah, I do definitely still get those butterflies in my stomach, and my heart still races sometimes.
Oh, I can imagine. I'm having it now. I'm just thinking, I'm just saying, wow, that kind of experience, when, let's say it is a person that says, listen, I just took 3 bottles of different pills. I swallowed a half a bottle of Jack Daniels to wash it down. and I'm here to tell you my last words. I know my heart be palpitating. I don't know. You know, I probably would have paused for a moment to just gather my thoughts as quickly as I possibly can to know how I'm going to handle this and what I'm going to do next.
Sure.
Which brings me to my next question. Have you ever lost anybody while on that phone?
No. No.
I would imagine that would be just devastating.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult that would be. You know, of course, if anything like that were to happen, you know, we are equipped to be supportive to the counselor. Our counselors and our callers are our two consecutive number one priorities. You know, we want the caller to be safe and feel comfortable and supported, and we want the counselor to feel safe and comfortable and supported. So we work really hard to provide that kind of environment. You know, our counselors are wonderful, and they provide such a wonderful, safe service for our callers.
That has to take a very special person to do something like that.
I think our counselors are pretty special.
Do you get a lot of students from like social work programs and psychology programs, and you know, and they're doing this to get, you know, the experience to work in this kind of field?
Yeah, we actually, they can get school credit for it.
Oh, they do?
They can get, if they want to, they can apply with their schools to get course credit.
Do they do like internship there? Like their actual internship?
Yeah, we have interns. We also, you know, even just someone who's volunteering and not technically an intern can get class credit if they arrange for it with their school. We sometimes have AmeriCorps volunteers that get a certain amount of money towards college for volunteer hours.
Okay.
And we do get a lot, and the experience from the feedback we've gotten from students is really invaluable because they get that real client contact, and they get that crisis counseling experience.
Well, if they could do this kind of counseling, I'm sure they can do any counseling. This is the toughest counseling, crisis counseling. You know, I mean,
really
and doing it in my office, I find it difficult. But again, I have the in-between. I have the ability to, which is easier for me to sit with someone and let them read my body language. I use my body language in the counseling, as well as reading their body language, and it's just very different.
Yeah,
it's
when
very
you
different.
don't
to
have
do it
body
on
language,
the phone, this is my voice. My voice has to be the greatest tool I have at this moment, and knowing what to say, what I'm going to communicate.
And for our online counselors, they don't even have a voice tone to go with, so they have to work with just a computer screen and words. So they have to also...
Oh, that's even more difficult. I think when you're writing, you have to be very careful because people could take things in different ways.
Sure, you
it's
don't know what
easier
someone
to not perceive things as they're meant.
Well, and one of the things we train our counselors to do, and I think it's just good advice in general in life, is if you're not sure what somebody means by something, ask. The only way to know what somebody really means, what they feel, or who they are, is to ask them.
Absolutely. But how about, but the problem then becomes probably the client won't ask the counselor.
Sure.
And that's a skill that unfortunately a lot of people just don't use. Just say clarified or do you mean, you know, this?
Sure.
Do you mean, you know, and a lot of people don't do that. I teach it all the time because it seems to be the one thing that people don't want to do, or they assume they understand.
Right.
And then they go by that perception, and sometimes it's the wrong perception.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely want our callers to feel comfortable to ask us questions if they're not sure about what we mean or they're not sure what something means, to ask us, because the call is really about them and really about helping them.
Difficult work. And at the end must be very gratifying as well.
It is. It's extremely gratifying, especially when you see somebody, help somebody find their hope again, or help somebody just get through the day or the next few minutes so that they don't have to be alone.
So I'm going to say that again. Remember to call and say when you're feeling better. Things are working out and the suggestions worked out, and you know, it's always good to hear that. It's always good to hear that someone is doing better. And they do worry.
We really do worry. We really do care.
It's not easy because you do worry. I mean, working at the coalition, I remember many times on the hotline, if somebody calls and says, my husband's in the other room and he just bit me out and I'm just sneaking this call. I really need some help. And then they hang up on you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then what do? You don't even know what to do. But you know what? Until that person calls again, if they do, it's every day thinking, what happens to that person? What happens to that person? Because you didn't even get a chance to ask any information or anything. And so you kind of live anxious for days. Yeah. And then if they do call, you go, my goodness. And you kind of got planned out. I'm going to ask all these questions real quick just because, what if they hang up again?
Right.
And want to have some way of contacting them or getting them in any way.
Well, I think that's one nice thing for callers to know is that, maybe they don't realize that the people on the other end of the line really do care about them. They might think, oh, well, you're just paid to care. But the people that are there because they want to be. They're volunteers, and they really do care. A lot of them have had experiences, with difficult circumstances themselves. Who hasn't? And they just want to be there for somebody else who's going through a difficult time.
Do you get a lot of that? Do you get a lot of people that may be wanting to be volunteers because they have been through very difficult experiences, they've come through it, and now they want to help others?
Definitely. I think in general, most people want to make meaning out of their suffering at some point. And I think that a lot of our counselors are doing exactly that. They've been through some kind of hard time, and they've managed to get through it. Maybe they had somebody who helped them. Maybe they didn't, and they wish they did. But they want to be somebody that's there for someone else to provide that support.
And that's what that's all about, being there. I love being a counselor. I love my work, and I know you do too. Here's a question for you. I know as a manager, I've been a nurse manager, but I've also been a manager at a domestic violence agency. When I interview people, I have this quirky thing that I do, and I'm just wondering if you all do the same thing. I always want to know, what do they do for leisure time? What is a hobby? Because I feel that people who have instituted these things in their lives, when you're doing such a difficult job, it's very important to know that they have it, or else later on down the line, they're going to have a problem because they haven't instituted these things in their lives. Do you ever ask those questions?
Well,
or encourage them to have it?
We don't ask those questions formally, but what's really nice is because we're relatively small, we really get to know our counselors one-on-one, and so we get to hear about who they really are, what kinds of things they like to do, what are their aspirations, what are their hopes, what are their goals in life, and just we talk about what kind of day they're having, and we're supportive to them, they're supportive to us. It's a really nice family feel. And we do want people to have a nice balance in their life. We don't want them to carry home all the painful things that they've heard on the lines. We want to know that they're okay. And so, we really encourage counselors to reach out to us as staff and to talk to each other, to support each other through this difficult calls, because they need it. They need it. And because it's confidential, they can't talk about it outside of the agency.
Right. Absolutely. So the support is in the agency, and like you said, it's a small place. How many volunteers do you have? I mean, at 4 hours a week, you would have to have a lot of bodies to cover these phones.
We have about 70 volunteers at any given time, and that means on our hotline, on our support line, on Conexión, our Spanish line. About 70 volunteers. Some are there weekly, some are there, maybe every couple of weeks. But we have to constantly maintain and bring in new people as other people have to leave.
Conexión. It is hard, having been in management, to get bilingual counselors. you have a bilingual counselor there, or is that a translation system?
We have several bilingual counselors. Because there are so few, the way that Conexión works is it's limited hours from 5 to 10 Monday through Friday, and people can call in at any time of the day, leave a message with their number, and the counselor who checks those messages from 5 to 10 will call them back, from 5 to 10 Monday through Friday.
So Monday through Friday, 5 to 10, there is someone to answer at Conexión. And the number for Conexión?
I don't have the number on hand right now. If you go to our website, www.responsehotline.org, that number is posted there along with the hotline number and the lifeline number, and all of our other, all of our other services as well.
Okay, that's great. So what's the number we call if we want to volunteer?
You can call our hotline, which is 631-751-7500. That's if you are interested in volunteering. You can just tell us that you're interested in volunteering, and somebody will give me the message, and I'll call you back. If you need to talk, that's our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week crisis line. You don't need to be suicidal to call, but if you are, we're there for you.
Okay. Lisa, any last words that you'd like to say?
Just if you need to talk, if you're feeling alone, if you're having thoughts of suicide, please call. There is help. We're there to help you. We're there to talk with you.
And I'm going to add, just for our Hispanic people, Agencia de Response tiene servicios de teléfono también, y puedes llamar Conexión el lunes hasta viernes y
5 to 10.
Hasta las 5, hasta las 10 hay alguien allí que puede hablar en español con usted.
There's also the Spanish-speaking Lifeline. You can call Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK, and there's a Spanish-speaking option as well.
Okay, do you know what TALK number is? Because that's not going to work in Spanish.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Ooh,
it's could you do the letters in Spanish?
Okay. Okay, so what's the name of this service?
It's the Lifeline, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
Okay.
And the number is 1-800-273-TALK.
1-800-273. Okay. También ellos tienen una línea si está pensando de suicidio y que necesita hablar con alguien. Puedes llamar 1-800-273-TALK. Otra vez 1-800-273-TALK. Y hay alguien allí que pueda hablar con usted sobre qué tú estás pensando, sobre su deprimida. Hay mucho apoyo allí. Así que llama. Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, thank you very much.
Please watch us again next week. I will always have an interesting guest for you to speak to. And just remember, if you're in a domestic violence situation, if you've been abused, you are worthy, you are special, and you need to take care of yourself. Have a good evening, and I hope to see you next week. Thank you.
You know the night time is the right time to be with the one you love.